You are on the platform, and as I promised, and actually joining me in the studio, though I have not wanted to say ahead of time, to be honest, and it's so sad to say this for security reasons, I'm not sure if it's a great description, a survivor of the October 7th terror attacks by Hamas against Israel, because in some ways I think every Israeli is a survivor of the October 7th attacks if they are still sucking breath. But my guest, Shani Teshuva, lives in a community right bang up against Gaza, and she and her family were subject to that day of terror. Shani, welcome to New Zealand. Welcome to the platform. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to have you here.
Thank you for having me here.
We got a bit of time to talk. So firstly, just tell me who's Shani? Tell us about yourself.
Shani.
Shani.
I'm a 44-year-old mom. I used to be a farmer all my life. I grew wine vineyards. I worked in a flower farm on the Gaza border. And I have two kids. They're 13 and 15. And we come from the Gaza envelope, which is an area that's 7 kilometers from the Gaza border. My kibbutz specifically is exactly 1 kilometer from the border.
Yeah, I was saying, I looked at it on Google Maps. You're right there. They're the next door neighbours.
Yeah, literally.
Okay. Were you born in Israel? And what's your family's history, or what we would call your whakapapa?
I was born in Israel. My parents are American. This is why I have a slight American accent.
Yeah.
But I was born and raised in Israel, lived there my entire life.
Okay. And your parents were they'd been in America a while, or?
My parents are American. They moved to Israel in the early 70s. 2000, my dad went back to the States. He lives there now. My mom still lives in Israel. And my brothers and sister are scattered all over the world and in Israel.
Right, so you're an Israeli. You're a practicing Jew. That's your religion. So then,
yeah,
okay. And you can be Israeli without being Jewish. So I just want to check that. You lived on this kibbutz, as you said, and I looked at the other day, just right there, a kilometre from the Gaza border. Take us back to October the 7th, before all this kind of unfolded. What were you doing that morning? What would you do on a morning a year ago?
It was a Saturday morning. What I do on Saturday mornings is go on a bike ride. I always felt very safe riding by myself in the nature reserves. And my path is always the exact same path. It's a 25-kilometer route that goes to the Zikim Beach, goes behind the army bases, to Netiv Asara, the Erez border crossing, and back through Kalmia Nature Reserve. And that morning, 6 o'clock, I got up and I got ready to go on a bike ride. And at 6:15, I looked at my clock and I said to myself that it's not as hot as it was last week. And I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, and I'm going to give myself an extra 10 minutes at home before I leave. And I stayed, I grabbed another glass of water, organized some things, and if I did not make that decision, and if I did not stay at home for those extra 10 minutes, and had I left on time, I would not be here today, because everybody that was on that path was murdered.
Because that was the route that the terrorists came across the border from Gaza?
It was one of the routes. Yeah, they came on through many, many points on the border, and they were just there all over. They came from the beach, and they came from the Erez border crossing, and in between, so...
Wow. That's 10 minutes of your life that you'll be glad you didn't be a crazy cyclist. What then happened? If you didn't set out on your bike ride, when did you know that something was wrong?
6:29 exactly. It felt as though the doors to hell broke open because there was a rainfall of rockets. Now, you have to understand that I hate to say this, but we learned how to live alongside rockets on occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, we had rockets shot towards us once a month, sometimes once a week. When it escalated, it was for 3-4 days continuously. And then sometimes we left the kibbutz for a few days and came back when it cooled down a bit. But this is something that we learned to live alongside with. As crazy as it is, we have 8 seconds to get to shelter if there's an alarm. And that morning, 6:29, over 1,500 rockets were shot at the Gaza envelope within 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yes.
So you were to
We
a
were
bomb
home.
shelter? Yeah.
We were home, woke up, the kids woke up, of course, but you get up, you jump. I was already awake. We ran down to the safe room. It's not a shelter.
Yeah.
It's a room inside a house that has a bit more concrete and a metal door and window.
Yeah.
And we ran in, and just rockets kept flying overhead. The Iron Dome that protects us at a certain point ran out of ammunition because there were so many so fast. And then rockets started falling all around us, hit different houses on kibbutz. In my street, 2 rockets hit. One of them hit 10 centimeters from 2 barbecue gas balloons. A miracle that the rocket did not explode and the balloons did not explode.
Wow. Yeah.
The other one did hit my neighbor's car that did explode.
Yeah.
And then we figured out something was hit outside. Both my husband and I are medics.
Yeah.
We decided he's going to run out and see if someone was hit. And when he ran out and he saw that it's just a car, someone from the emergency response team came up and grabbed him and said that we have wounded people, if he could bring his car and help evacuate people. And that's when we started getting a bigger picture of what's going on.
Because if you'd had rocket attacks, but wow, that's a bad rocket attack, and it was essentially an invasion and an incursion by people on foot who were then crossing that border, and I presume that was a new thing for you.
It was a new thing. We thought it's not possible. We thought that the only threat we have to deal with nowadays, are rockets. And all of a sudden, we're hearing different explosions go off. We hear arms. I didn't know that at the time, but grenades and RPGs. And the reason we did not know exactly what was going on is with this rocket attack, on the northern part of the Gaza border, there was also a cyber attack. We had no phones and no communications from 7 o'clock in the morning. And think if you lose your phone for 30 minutes, how lost you feel. Now think you have no communications under a rocket attack. And so no one could let the other people know that there are terrorists that are trying to enter the kibbutz at that point. Our emergency response team was fighting them, but people were in their houses not knowing exactly about the fights and the battle that's going on 200 meters from their house because everybody's in their safe rooms.
Yeah.
And I think that the biggest miracle of my kibbutz, and this is the reason why they weren't able to penetrate the kibbutz, is that a Navy Army observer got on radio with the head of security, and she told him that there are dozens of terrorists in the water, in the ocean, heading towards
To the beach you
To
were
the
going to
beach.
cycle down to, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And she said that the Navy was able to stop some of them, but a lot of them passed them,
Yeah.
and that they're heading towards the beach, and that they're heading towards the army bases, and that they're heading towards the kibbutz. And that radio that she made allowed the emergency response team, which is regular people from the kibbutz that train 2 days a year that
Yeah.
are supposed to give the initial response, that allowed them to disperse on the fences of kibbutz.
Yeah.
And they got there exactly 1 minute before a car pulled up and people with RPGs got out of it.
Right.
And they came to explode the fences and to enter the kibbutz. So the fact that they were there 1 minute before allowed them to go into contact with them,
Yeah.
and this prevented them from blowing up the fence and entering the kibbutz.